Hi, welcome to WoW Flash, the weekly series where I bring you the news related to World of Warcraft that I think is important from the last week. So, of most interest, I think, is again the strong assumption, and it is still an assumption, that the pre-Legion patch will be launching next week. So that'll be Tuesday the 19th, people in North America, Wednesday the 20th, people in Europe. I don't know the rest of the world when your sort of release day is, but when, next reset, shall we say. I mean, what's led to this? See, Blizzard haven't said anything yet, so it's still a presumption. It's sort of got bigger. I mean, there was something leaked some time ago where they said the 19th, and then they announced that the PvP season was going to end on the 19th, and people took that as stronger evidence, even though there's nothing really stopping them having a week's grace anyway. But then on the PTR, all of a sudden, when they put a new build on the PTR, which they've sort of been doing each week for the last few weeks, it has been labelled as release. So that is an indicator that they're not planning on putting out any new PTR builds, which could well be a strong indicator that it's coming for next week. It's still not 100%, of course. I mean, Blizzard could still bring it out the following week. I myself find it strange that I would be thinking, if there's any doubt that it'd be ready for next week, because it's only a few days away now, surely they'd just think, to hell with it, we'll bring it out the week after. And if they're not in any doubt and it's absolutely ready to go for this Tuesday, why not just say so? So I don't know. It may be next week. There's a strong feeling that it'll be next week. It could be the week after. There was another weekly Q&A from a lead dev. This time it was about World Quest and the Demon Invasion that's going to be coming, the pre-Legion event. As before, as in the last one, there wasn't actually very much news, but there were a few explanations. Now, one thing of interest when it comes to the Demon Invasion, of course, in a few weeks we're going to be getting that Demon Invasion event. I think it's supposed to be coming out 2 weeks after the pre-patch, if I remember correctly. And what they've said is they're going to sort of monitor it. They like the idea of potentially doing something like this during an expansion rather than just as a pre-expansion event. Could be a really good idea, that. I mean, what they've done pretty well, I think, in World of Warcraft is seasonal events. Every couple of months we have this seasonal event where you do a load of new quests that are only going to be there for a couple of weeks, and then you get certain rewards. But even though they update them each year, they're sort of the same thing. So the idea of shaking up that seasonal schedule a little bit sounds good to me. What they've said is that they're actually asking for the community to provide some ideas. So what do you think? They're not suggesting doing another Demon Invasion event partway through an expansion, but some event like that where it involves world quests. So the idea that you look on your map and see something's happening in a particular zone in the world, not necessarily the new zones as well, could be older ones, and you go there and do something, and just like the Demon event will work. So if anyone's got any ideas of what make a really good event, then send it Blizzard's way. World Quest, they were talking about World Quest and the idea behind them. Of course, what they really need is regular content for us to do. They've sort of talked about the fact, if we go back to MOP, with Mists of Pandaria, they've acknowledged that the daily quests there were just too much. And they did my head in. I absolutely annoyed them. They were much happier with the ones that came a bit later. I think they were probably talking about the Throne of Thunder patch. So the stuff on the Isle of Thunder, which, yeah, fair enough. So what they've tried to do here is lots of world quests. So there's lots of things for you to do at level cap, but it doesn't repeat itself too much. Now, they've done a few things that sound like a good idea to me. One of them is, there's lots of different types of content, by the way. I mean, there's some people have been watching my videos when I've been doing things on this. You've got the usual things, which is go to an area and kill so many of these things and so many of these things and maybe a named mob. You've got something where you gather a load of things. There's even a quest where you go knocking druids on the head. There's ones related to your professions. There's ones that involve very, very tough mobs that you won't be able to take out on your own. You'll need other people there, but you wouldn't necessarily need a group. If there's other people, they'll naturally congregate there because it'll give off good loot. And of course, the loot will be good. Remember, for those who don't know, when you get like equipment as a reward, the item level is sort of based on your average item level. So when you first get to level cap, it might be like 805. But if your average item level is about 810 or something like that, then actually it might give an 815 level. And if it's a bit higher, it might give an 825 item level and so on. It has a cap, of course. You can't just do World Quest to get the best gear in the game. But the other thing is, with these tough mobs, what they've said as well is they can randomly pop up anywhere, and their abilities are tied to the zone. So you might have a particular mob, and you fight it in a Zuna one time, and you think, oh, you learn its abilities, and then the next time you see the same mob in, say, Stormheim, and you go, oh, I know how to do this mob, I know what it does. And then suddenly you're surprised because it does different things, because it does different things in different zones. So it's just to make it a little bit more new. Eventually, of course, you will learn what they do in each zone, I suppose. But hopefully by the time that happens, maybe they'll have shaken it up. Because another thing they've said is the idea of these world quests is it makes it possible to sort of ease some out and introduce new content as the expansion goes through. So, of course, all of these, which world quests are there at any one time is just a random number generator. It's just like on a table in Dungeons and Dragons. You just roll to see what you get. So what they can do is, with some of the older quests as the expansion gets in, they just make the chance of it popping up smaller and smaller, so it doesn't disappear completely, it just becomes more uncommon. And then with the newer ones, put those in and they have a slightly higher chance. And that sounds like a good idea to me, because what it means is, it doesn't matter if the same quest that you had at the start occasionally comes up now and then. If you reduce the chance of it coming up, you're not going to get really bored with it, because it might not be showing up for, say, a month or so, and you're all right with that. And it actually increases the sheer number of sites. But of course, they could just get rid of older quests eventually, I suppose. They'll probably play that one by ear. The emissary they've discussed, this is the idea that you can do quests tied to a particular faction, like an emissary comes to you with a quest, and go and do 4 of their quests, and then you get returned to them, and you get a cache, which has some, a nice reward in it, and a possibility of a legendary. So this is one of the ways in which you can get the legendary. So each day you'll be or whenever, because these emissary quests, the ones that are tied to factions, are sort of available for up to 3 days. And that's the thing with some of these world quests. Some of them are available up to 3 days. They've said this before. They said it at BlizzCon. The idea being you don't have to feel you need to, if you're a more casual player, that you need to log on every single day. It's not like you'll miss stuff, because you can still do them a bit later. Some of them have shorter cooldowns. It sort of depends on the nature of them. They say the idea is that every play session you have, every time you come on, there should be sort of 10 to 20 world quests that have sort of refreshed. So you've always got something new to do there. And that's it. I mean, they talked about quite a few things, but nothing really new beyond that, I don't think. And then the last sort of piece of news this week was people have sort of blown this one out of proportion, a bit of a non-news story. It's related to the silence penalty. And there's like, wow, YouTubers have been doing whole videos on this, and I really don't see why, because it's not going to affect over 90% of the player base. But for those who don't know what it is how annoying it is when you've got people spamming stuff in trade. I think this is, to be honest, going to be mostly aimed at gold sellers, but it could be anyone. So people spamming in trade or spamming in general or whatever. And of course, we have the facility to report them for spamming. And that, just on a personal level, basically has the effect of ignoring them for a short time so that we don't have to see that spam. What this feature will do now is, if enough people report them, it goes to a Blizzard employee who will look at it, and if they decide that this person has breached the terms and conditions and indeed was spamming, they'll apply the silence penalty. What this means is that they cannot, for 24 hours, talk in trade or indeed any public channel, any global channel like that. They won't be able to talk in party or raid chat in looking for raid or looking for dungeon. In other words, it stops them being able to spam people for the next 24 hours. If they get caught doing it again at some other point, then it'll be an increased period of time for which this penalty applies. It doesn't stop you talking in guild. It doesn't stop you talking in party or raid chat if it's a group that's been formed. Do you know what I mean? It's simply just to stop you annoying people that can do nothing about it, I think. As if you did this in guild, then the guild master can just kick you, I suppose. And if you did it in a party, like a mythic dungeon or something where the group has actually been formed properly through an invite system, you could just kick the person. So it's not hugely debilitating. So it's just not going to affect many people. It's not going to affect most normal people. Most normal people don't spam trade. It can't be abused. It's not an automated process. You can't just say, oh, 10 people who don't like you just decide to report you. It won't, because it has to go through Blizzard employee. They'll look at the chat and go, this person wasn't spamming, and nothing further will happen. So it can't be abused. And even if you are someone who spams a lot like that, it's not hugely debilitating. As I say, it doesn't stop you doing stuff in guild or with normal parties. It just stops you spamming again for a period of time. They do say if you keep doing it, it will stack up to be a very, very long period of time. But again, how many people is that really going to affect? So a bit of a non-story, that one. So that's pretty much the news of the week as I've seen it. One last thing is, because going back to the release, because the pre-patch may come out next week, related, I'm going to do my live Q&A on this Sunday. It may not come out next week. I'm not saying it's definitely coming out next week. It just may do. But because Blizzard aren't saying, I'm just going to say that for this Sunday. It's going to be 7 p.m. UK time. That's not GMT, bear in mind, UK time. And that'll be on Twitch, and the details are there. And that's it. So if you've enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, I'll see you later.